Hello, and welcome to Virtual Birding. Today we're back at Ellanor Park again. I didn't anticipate being back so soon, but a friend of mine told me about a secret Fox Sparrow spot that he's been seeing them. So our target bird today is Fox Sparrow, which is a bigger sparrow, and it's got those really nice red markings to the face and to the wings and the back and tail. It's a winter bird that I love, but I don't really see very often, so when I heard that there was a spot that he'd been seeing them regularly, I had to go check it out. Start off by going towards the visitor center here, which is another historical building here in the park. Behind the building, there's a set of bird feeders. So we'll check there first. That's not the spot I'm anticipating seeing Fox Sparrow, although they do show up there sometimes. Instead, we'll be looking for some of the other birds, and here we have our first bird that we've seen, which is American Robin. That is one that we only heard on the last episode of Virtual Birding, so it's good to get a sighting and add that to the list of birds that we've seen on this channel. So keep heading around back to the back side of the visitor center. Going through this and just peeking around the corner, because usually the feeders are pretty busy, but today there is nothing here at all. There was actually not anything for quite a long time, so I just made a cut here to sort of fast forward us into the future. I'm not really sure why there weren't any birds around, but the Cooper's hawk does come through here every once in a while and chases everything off, so I never saw that Cooper's hawk, but a decent chance that it had been through, chased everything away, and we just had to wait until things came back. A couple birds starting to appear in the trees, particularly these mourning doves that really enjoy these feeders. It's one of the better places to see them in the park. And then while I was looking at that, a crow flew in and started calling, so take a look at that. Crows tend to hang around the feeders quite a bit. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they just are curious about the bird activity. There are peanuts down there, which is something theoretically they'd be interested in, but I've never actually seen them come down and eat anything. Still, nothing at the feeders, just hanging out in the trees, but all we need is maybe some chickadees or titmice or something to come in. They're a little braver than the rest. Maybe they will start things off, and here comes a chickadee now. If we can get him down to the feeder, other things will start showing up, and we're already starting to hear a few other birds coming into the area. See if we can find those purple finches. Seem like maybe they're up in the tree, and there is one of them. This one's a female, and then the male's there with the more reddish purple color. I don't know that I'd necessarily call them purple exactly, but I guess it's a little more purpley red than, say, a similar house finch would be. There's an airport pretty close by here, so there's going to be a few planes that go over. You can see that one coming in for a landing as we take a look at a red-bellied woodpecker, another female, working her way along a branch. Seems like a few more birds we can hear coming in. Once things get started and the chickadees and titmice start going down to the feeders, things can really pop off pretty quick. This downy woodpecker came in for a peanut, and the titmice are now here looking for seeds. These ones have already been to the feeder and have a couple sunflower seeds that they're cracking open. Definitely some more activity here now, and on the ground there's a few birds as well, so we'll take a look at those, and it appears to be some dark-eyed juncos. You can see that really dark male that's almost black, and the female that's a little bit more gray and brown. There's another male, that really sort of dark slatey color, almost black, even darker one there. And then behind it looks like this one is a male as well, actually. White-breasted nuthatch calling again, maybe he'll come in. There he is on the tree, flew down to the feeder, grab a peanut, and he's quick gone before I relieve and get him into focus. Some cardinals starting to come in, and another male junco, female cardinal, that little bit more brown with the red highlights. Pretty male right there next to her. And look at this, a house finch and a purple finch have come to the feeder together at the same time. You can really see the differences between the two, with that purple finch with the much stronger eyebrow, really a bigger bird, a little bit different shape. When you see them side by side like that, they're really relatively easy to tell apart. And here's the male, a little bit better look at him, with that purpley red all the way down the chest and onto the back, which the male house finches are a little bit more red than purple red in color. There's somebody coming into the peanuts. Oh, just missed them. But here comes a tufted titmouse, grabbing a peanut and taking it away. It's really a lot of pretty good activity at these feeders now. This is what I expected when I first came, so to find them completely empty was definitely a surprise. And it looks like that purple finch male is now down on the feeder, although on the back side, making him pretty difficult to see. We've now seen most of what I would expect to see at these feeders, except perhaps white-throated sparrow and that red-bellied woodpecker that has been calling here and there that doesn't seem to want to come into the feeder, although we did see him at a distance. But we'll take one last scan here, see if there's anything else around. Got that female cardinal looking sharp. And in the bushes, oh, there's a white-throated sparrow, so that's pretty much the last one I'd expect. Nice male cardinal. A few white-throated sparrows look like they've come in at this point. Trading places with that cardinal, hopping around in the bush. So that's probably about it for the feeder, but it does seem like there's some activity further back in the woods. Could just be robins. There's been a lot calling around in the trees. But no, a little flock of red-winged blackbirds up there picking at seeds. Alright, well, I think that pretty well wraps things up here. We have probably seen just about everything we'll see at this spot, so we'll keep moving towards the woods, get out to our Fox Sparrow hotspot. We'll keep our eyes open as we move towards the tree line. There seems to be a lot of birds that are attracted by the activity at the feeders, but aren't really going to come into the feeders themselves, and they tend to congregate on the edge of the trees, and so that can often be a pretty good birding spot. Now, it looks like there's a little bit of activity here right now up in the trees, and it looks like it's one of the robins we've been hearing. There's really quite a few robins in this part of the park. There's a lot of berries up here in the north end that aren't as common in the south end that the robins really enjoy, and so there's often really big flocks out here, and you can see one of those flocks flying over right now and perched in the trees a little bit further in the distance. Definitely fun to see and a little bit easier to see than in our last bird walk in the southern part of the park. But we'll keep moving, look for something new. A lot more robins flying through there. I think that looks like all robins, although there is quite a few of them. Something different, but looks like it's another white-throated sparrow coming into the feeders, probably to join the ones that we saw in the bush earlier. Seems like just robins, maybe a few sparrows on the edge, so we'll head into the woods and make our way towards the sparrow spot. This first section of woods that we'll pass through tends to be pretty quiet in the winter. In the spring, I definitely get some migratory birds that come through here, but I really don't see too much this time of year. So it's going to be a lot of walking through pretty quiet woods, but that gives us a little bit of time to talk about where we're going. The secret sparrow spot really isn't a secret exactly, but it is a new trail that they just put in this last fall and isn't on any of the park maps. And so in some ways it is a secret because there's not really almost anybody that knows about it. I think me and my friend are maybe the only two people that have really been birding back there, and it has been quite good. There were a lot of red-breasted nuthatches on that trail this fall, which was pretty exciting, but I never saw any fox sparrows there, so I wouldn't have really expected them to be there in the winter. But when I ran into my friend on the trail the other day, he said that he's been seeing fox sparrows, and not only seeing fox sparrows, but seeing them regularly. So I expect this might be a pretty easy target bird to put in the bag. Fox sparrow is one of my absolute favorite winter birds here in Virginia, but I don't really see them enough for my liking. They're just so big compared to the other sparrows, and they've got that really rufusy red color, which is amazing. There's some years that I'll find them, but they tend to be pretty hit and miss, and they're not always in the same place when I go back. And I never find very many of them. The white-throated sparrows you'll find in huge flocks, and they're pretty easy to hear calling in the brush and track down, but fox sparrows tend to be solo or maybe two, and so they're pretty tough. Looking for a needle in a haystack, and a needle in a haystack of white-throated sparrows more often than not. You see it sometimes in the winter where birds will move into an area and eat up all the food that's there for them and then move on to a different area because they don't have territories like they do in the summer, so they're not so restricted to one area. So anytime I'm looking for a very specific bird in a spot that somebody's told me about in the winter, I definitely have at least a little bit of worry that it might have moved on already. But we'll know soon enough, because right up here is the start of this trail. You can see the gravelly trail that we're on turns to the right, and that trail is just grass and dirt, and it definitely looks a little less curated. I think there's still going to be improvements on this trail over time, but right now it's a little bit on the rougher side. But that's definitely alright with me. If I see a fox sparrow back there, you're not going to see me complaining. Here's a first sparrow, but pretty tough to tell what that was when it scampered away. I feel like I saw a little bit of an eye line there that looks pretty similar to a white-throated sparrow, but can't really tell. But there's a red-breasted nuthatch calling. Those were around this fall. Let's see if we can get a look at it. It's got to be somewhere up in the trees, but they're little birds and they like being up high, so they can be pretty tough to spot. Take a little work. Look around. It's still calling, so it must still be up there. There's a little bit of motion. There it is. On an overcast day, super high up in the air. Pretty tough to get a good look at it, but you can see that nuthatch shape with the short tail, and it's very small and slight, unlike a white-breasted would be. And of course the calls are a pretty good indication on what something like that is. Here's some more sparrows. Another white-throated sparrow. This time we see that one a little bit better. But that wasn't the only bird that I saw moving in here. If we scan around with our binoculars a little bit, and oh, and there it is. There's our target bird, fox sparrow. I guess my friend was right. There's definitely at least one fox sparrow back here. And compared to a lot of times, that was pretty easy to find. I mean, we got it pretty quick once we were on this trail. And there's a couple more, just sitting right out in the open. I guess there's a few fox sparrows here. He had told me that he saw the species, but I didn't realize there was multiples. I don't often see that. A little bit more motion. Oh, but that's a chickadee. That went pretty quick like they often do. We'll come up here, see if we can't get a look at it. Ah, fox sparrow singing. That is something I very rarely hear, and I don't think I've ever heard it in the winter. The white-throated sparrows will sing sometimes, but I've never heard a fox sparrow sing in the winter. Maybe with so many of them here. And here's our chickadee. Get a little bit better look. Looks like it's finding some seeds in that old plant stock. Keep moving, see if there's anything else around. See if we can find more of these fox sparrows now that I know that there's so many of them. Definitely still the fox sparrows calling. You can hear that really sort of harsh chip note. This kind of sounds like two rocks being struck together. In some ways it sort of reminds me of a junco call note, but it's a little heavier. I don't know if this will make sense, but to me a junco's call notes sound like two sort of smaller rocks being hit together, versus the fox sparrow sounds like two slightly larger rocks getting hit together. I don't know. These sparrow chip notes, you gotta come up with whatever you can to figure out the differences between them. Now there's a tough sparrow to see, but you can see that plain face and the pink bill, that white eye ring, and I'm sure you remember that bird, the field sparrow, from our previous walk where it was our target bird. Nice to get it again. This isn't exactly the habitat I would expect it in, but it's nice to see. Fox sparrow singing again, and the white-throated singing. You might think it's spring here, even though it's a cold morning in the middle of December. It's like more white-throated sparrow. That's a really sharp one with that black cap and really bright white throat. Definitely you can hear a bunch of white-throated sparrows around in here. Definitely a little flock hidden by the branches. And there's another fox sparrow. Just such a pretty bird. That rufous color is so nice. I don't think I could ever get tired of seeing them. Just ahead, this trail splits into a loop. We'll keep going straight down that trail, but we'll loop back on the trail you see to your left. I'm not really sure what they're doing back here, but as you get into this section, you'll see some wire cages. I think they might be deer exclusion cages that they'll grow plants in the spring, but I'm really not sure. I haven't been able to talk to somebody from the park that would know. I've seen fences like these in other parks that are meant to keep deer out, where scientists are running an experiment where they compare the deer browse outside the fences, where the deer can eat, to inside of the fences, which the deer can't get to, which allows them to assess how much the deer are affecting the forest. A lot of times those fences have been either higher than these or have had mesh roofs on the top, so I don't know if that's what these are, but they definitely remind me of that, and they may not be finished yet because I think they're still doing work back in this area. Well, it's not a deer, but here we do have our first mammal, some more eastern gray squirrels. This guy here was chasing off another squirrel every time he ran down the branch. It seems the squirrels may already be pairing up, even though it's still December and it's not traditionally a time that I would think of being breeding season. But honestly, I'm more familiar with birds, so I don't know quite as much about the mammal behaviors. So I was gonna move on, but I thought I heard something behind me, and the camera doesn't catch it the first time, but if you listen here, there's a sound that sounds a lot like a Cooper's hawk, but then when I looked, there was a bunch of blue jays back there, and they will imitate Cooper's hawks sometimes. It's more common that they imitate red-tailed hawks or red-shouldered hawks, but I have heard them do Cooper's hawks before, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It wouldn't be impossible for a Cooper's hawk to be around and calling back there, but for it to just happen twice and then a big group of blue jays come in, I don't know, it's too much of a coincidence. And honestly, to me, the sound doesn't totally sound right for Cooper's hawk anyways. I feel like blue jays have a little bit more of a nasally quality to some of their imitations, although even though mockingbirds are more famous for it, their imitations are pretty good sometimes, and I definitely have been fooled. As I came around here, I looked up because I heard a mourning dove take off. You can hear that little bit of whistle in the wings. It doesn't translate super well into the camera for whatever reason, but it had flown off, so didn't get a chance to see it. But just up here, I saw a little bit more activity in this tangle of brush, and it's another fox sparrow hiding in the tangles. We're getting towards the end of this loop, and that's not a great look at fox sparrow to end on, so hopefully we can find something a little bit better just to cap things off. And that's pretty nice. Yeah, such a handsome bird. This is definitely an area I'm going to come back to quite a few times this winter to keep seeing these birds. Definitely worth coming back for. And here's a fun little bird, a kinglet, hopping through the trees. They move pretty erratically and are pretty tough to follow, so I think we're lucky to have gotten the look we got of that. Keep going around, meet up with the trail we came in on, and start making our way back to the parking lot. Seems like that white-throated sparrow flock is still here. And there's the fox sparrow singing again. Nice way to send us off. White-throated sparrows singing. And there goes a bunch of birds. Yeah, if you look off to the right there, there's just tons and tons of white-throated sparrows taking off out of the brush, moving farther back off the trail. There goes a bunch more. And here's a little nicer look than them just flying away. Maybe not quite as pretty as a fox sparrow, but still a pretty handsome bird. After a final look around, we'll keep making our way down the path towards the exit. We'll stop and listen here for just a second. hear this white-throated sparrow sing. And we'll keep going. Definitely keep our eyes out for new birds on the way back to the car. But really, we've done pretty well. I haven't actually spent a ton of time in the north end of this park during the winter, except for maybe a few trips to the bird feeder on snowy days. A lot of times, the north end of the park can be pretty quiet, so from my memory of those couple trips, I think we've seen most of what I would expect to see up here. But maybe we'll get surprised by something on the way back. Heard a yellow rump warbler, and there it is, up in these junipers. Again, it's up in a juniper that has those berries like we saw last time, which is what I think they really like to eat in the winter. Yeah, and there it grabs one now. Up ahead on the left, you can see a sign. They have these signs the whole way along this trail, and each of them has some sort of animal fact on it. Mostly about chipmunks or squirrels, to be honest, but they're pretty interesting, and they have them in several different languages, so people in this very culturally diverse community can all read it. Just up ahead is my favorite of these signs, which I'll take a second and stop at for you, just to get a taste of what they're like. This one is a fun fact about chipmunks, and I'll read it for you. It says, chipmunks can cram 12 acorns or 70 sunflower seeds into their flexible cheek pouches. When underground, chipmunks use their paws to push their cheeks to release the seeds. And it's got a very cute picture of a chipmunk with some pretty stuffed cheeks. I actually saw a chipmunk that had their cheeks stuffed, maybe even more than this one, if you can believe it, the other day when I was at the park. I'll put that photo in at the end just so you can see it. It's pretty funny. With that, we'll take a last turn, and we've found our way back to the parking lot. As always, we'll do a summary of our walk. We had 21 bird species, 1 mammal species, walked a little less than a mile in an hour and 15 minutes. And of course, we saw our target bird, the Fox Sparrow. And here's our species list. Like last time, if a bird is something we only heard and didn't actually see, it'll have that HO indicator. But I've also added an N indicator for species that are new that we've never seen on virtual birding before, and also S for the species that we've seen for the first time, like our American robin, that we had only heard in the past. Another excellent list for a great morning of birding, and even one more species than we had last time. So to summarize things, we now have 28 species on our virtual birding life list, with 8 added new today, and still 1 species of mammal with our eastern gray squirrels. Thanks for joining me on this virtual bird walk. I hope to see you next time, and happy birding!